Okay, as soon as we are live streaming, we can go.
Mhm.
I can't hear anything.
Oh, that is not a great start.
I think it might be something with the audio because I couldn't hear Aldo for a second when he first logged in.
Well, in all fairness, tyrannosaurs do not have ears, so that may be part of the problem.
I can't hear anything. Okay, I figured it out.
Okay, you can hear
Yay!
Yep.
can
For
hear
some
us now.
reason, yeah, for some
That
reason,
is
my computer
not a great
decided that my
start.
microphone was the correct speaker, which isn't a speaker at all.
Mm.
Ah, that is a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we are all here, we are all started, and now we can welcome everyone to Nerd Church. Normally, this is the place where we read through the Catholic lectionary and see what critical scholarships have to say about it, because one of the reasons we're here is to demonstrate that Catholics and indeed Christians in general do not have to read the Bible like idiots. However, and the Bible is our hyperfixation. However, sometimes a Catholic layman goes off the rails and says some stuff that is really, really dumb. And that means that I have to, instead of what I wanted to do today, which was talk about the Golden Legend and pitch to the Nerd Church team my idea for reading the Golden Legend, doing the good parts, where we include the exploding seals and leave out the casual anti Semitism. But I can't do that because John Yep of Catholics for Catholics decided to give Tom Homan an award and disrespect the Virgin Mary in the process. So we have to talk about that. So that's why we are here.
Is
So,
it the best bribe taker award? Is that the award?
um, no, oddly, he is being
Weird.
given a Protector of America award. So I'm going to get started. And once again, I'm going to put my Catholic hat on and draw the audience's attention to the home shrine behind me to demonstrate that I am speaking as someone who has as much right to claim to be a pious Catholic as the chuckle fucks, and that's a technical term, not an insult, who are giving Tom Homan this award.
You know, if someone would like to hand me a sack of cash, I am also available to be awarded Protector of America awards.
Yes, exactly. And I really just and also just so people who are starting to watch this live stream know, assuming that they exist, um that we are only going to go for about an hour before we have to stop because I am going to the interview for a good friend of mine who is being received into the Catholic Church, and I am his sponsor.
All right, so I gotta shut up. Got it.
No, you don't have to shut up. You can stop. No, you don't have to shut up, but be aware that if we don't get through this whole video, you might have to come back next Thursday.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
No.
So,
And this video is 54 minutes long. That's impossible. It's literally impossible. You know that, right?
yeah, I know that, but we're going to do
Okay.
our best, okay? So let's get going. And I have control of the pause button. So when anybody wants me to use the pause button, just tell me.
You don't want
And
us to just yap over them?
um sometimes, yes, but see, sometimes you have the original stupidity and you have the new stupidity, and you don't want to miss the new stupidity by skipping, but because you were so focused on the original stupidity.
This feels painful.
Yeah.
Also, I love the Catholics for Catholics. I just wonder where the Catholics for Protestants are.
Not with these guys. These guys probably hate Protestants. That's my guess.
Yeah.
They're uneasy bedfellows with Protestants, though, because they need Protestants to do this nonsense.
Man, I've met plenty of people who didn't like their bedfellows. So
yeah. Okay, so here we have this. So here we're just looking at the stage where
Almighty
this is
God,
going
we
to be
thank you
shot.
and we glorify you for the gift of life, especially in these days as many of us are here to participate in the March for Life in our nation's capital.
Okay, I just want to say that the March for Life is something that got started in the 70s and was basically Catholics deciding that since there were a whole bunch of evangelical Protestants who were suddenly like, we're looking for a pro-life cause to latch onto, we're like, yes, let's go and have a protest to oppose abortion. Not realizing that the reason why those evangelicals wanted to do that was because those evangelicals had completely failed on civil rights and were trying to redeem themselves.
And to be clear, not failed on getting civil rights to be a thing, failed on keeping civil rights being repressed. They were trying to keep people to not having civil rights.
Yes,
to make
exactly.
that clear.
They were sad at the end of segregation.
Yes. Yes. Evangelicals who had previously been fighting to prop up segregation had failed to do so and were now trying to prove to the world that no, they really were like the most super moral people ever. And the Catholic Church, who had, and then also John Paul II, for reasons that had to do with the fact that he didn't want Catholics in Poland, he didn't want the Catholic Church getting suppressed behind the Iron Curtain harder than it already was.
Which was pretty hard.
Which was pretty damn hard. So he basically forbade priests to engage in politics. The result of that is that you end up with groups like Catholics for Catholics, which are run by a bunch of poorly catechized laymen with very little support from the institutional hierarchy of the Catholic Church. Although occasionally they get people like Bishop Strickland, who honestly is about this far from getting excommunicated and laicized as a schismatic, to come in and deliver an invocation. So let's continue.
Help us, Lord, to remember you are the author of every life, the great blessing and gift that every person is. We're here to honor those who have worked tirelessly to protect children's lives who are threatened. And we know that threat is often from conception throughout life. We pray that we may understand more deeply than ever as a nation and as a world, as people of faith who know you, to understand more deeply that you are the author of life and that life is sacred from.
Okay, I just want to point out here that Strickland is not a grifter. Strickland is a true believer. And what he is saying, and something that people need to understand when we're dealing with particularly this community, is they 125% believe that they are protecting children and that they are the good guys. So any attempt to argue with them has to like start out from the point of like, what 62,000 kids? Show me the numbers, show me the kids, right?
Or just the fact that, Border Patrol recently started murdering people in broad daylight in the streets.
Yes, and pointing out that exactly, and because these are people who want to be good. So if you can convince them that, no, actually, you are giving aid and comfort to the people who are murdering innocent civilians and putting children in cages, they might actually listen. And that is who this video is made for, not for John Yep.
Oh yeah, he's too far gone.
Yeah, because John Yep is a straight up grifter, which is why he's using his like C tier like 50K sub YouTube channel, which in like right-wing grifters is like baby numbers, right?
I bet he hasn't even gotten any Putin money yet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, this guy's like, yeah. And that's why he's sucking up to Tom Homan so that people will notice him. And I realized that as a 12 subscriber YouTube channel, we are kind of, David to his Goliath. But the fact of the matter is that really, like the historical Goliath, he's just a really tall guy who has, a sword made out of iron. So I'm pretty sure if we aim our rock right, we can take him out. Metaphorically. Because we're not using rocks anymore. Based on photographs of Pope Leo, ball bats may still be on the table.
Conception to natural death. We ask your blessing for our time together and the honors we offer for those.
Okay, now, conception to natural death is a very important phrase that the Catholic Church is actually using a lot when they're trying to explain why Catholic opposition to abortion is not rooted in wanting to punish women for having sex. Because the good version of what he's saying, the positive version of what he's saying, is that basically from the second that fertilization happens to the point that, grandma is to the point that you are laying in bed at the age of 101 on a ventilator, you are a human being, and the people around you should be considering your welfare in any situation. And in the particular case of pregnancy, that people who are not prepared to deal with a child should not be having penis and vagina intercourse.
That still sounds a whole lot like trying to punish women for having sex. I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay, yes, you can get and that's the problem, right? Is that you can get let's punish women for having sex out of that, right? What you can also get out of that, but what you can also get out of that is that, the Catholic Church should have a program to provide financial support to single mothers.
Does it?
They're actually starting to, yeah.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, like for example, when the woman was calling around getting with the cry on TikTok with the recording of the crying baby asking for formula,
Mm-hmm.
She got positive responses from a mosque, a Black church, a Buddhist temple, and a Catholic church.
Hey, good job.
And I'm not saying that, oh, yes, we should cover ourselves in glory. I'm saying that when asked to do like the bare minimum, the Catholic Church was able to step up.
That should be the new motto. The Catholic Church doing the bare minimum. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, if everybody did the bare minimum,
Oh yeah, the world will be a much better place.
the world would be a much better place,
oh, yeah.
right? Yeah. So,
Like I said, I was kidding. I was not being serious about that.
Yeah. But I mean, like, seriously, the Catholic Church telling everybody, just do the bare minimum, people. We're not asking you to nail yourself to a cross. We're asking you to, like, maybe be a decent person.
Yeah, this isn't the Philippines where people do, in fact, nail themselves to crosses.
Exactly. Well, and see, that's why the Catholic Church doesn't really have to make rules that say, like, you have to nail yourself to a cross, because they know that there is some glorious motherfucker who is going to do that anyway. And all they have to do for those people is just get out of their way and make sure they don't get hurt doing it.
I feel like there's no way to not get hurt. Yeah.
I think you do get hurt.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. What I'm saying is that everyone's religious practice should be safe, sane, and consensual.
Okay, so Catholicism operates under the same rules as BDSM. Got it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I think that everyone having been adjacent to the BDSM community and having been heavily involved in a variety of religious community, well, okay, two, but modern neo-paganism counts as multiple because it's crazy. And being currently involved in the Catholic Church, my position is that religious practice should follow the same rules as BDSM: safe, sane, and consensual.
Now I want to know what really happens with all those votive candles.
Okay, you really want to know what happens with all those votive candles?
No, I think I actually know.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll tell people in case they're thinking that Catholics are all just really, really into wax play.
Only some of them are.
Yes, only some of them are. Okay, but basically the idea is that you light the candle and you pray, or you pray and you light the candle. Order doesn't matter. And that your prayers are joined to the candle, right? So that as long as the candle is burning, your prayer, whatever that is continuously being offered up, right? So, and also there's a lot of saints will talk about like being on fire for God, or setting them, or I want to set myself on fire for God, right? So in a symbolic form, by lighting the candle, that's what you're doing. You're connecting yourself and your prayer to the candle, and then you're setting that on fire for God. And that's what we do with the votive candles. So that's the good part of Catholicism, which is what we like to talk about here, not these guys. But we should probably talk about these guys a little more, because that's officially why we're here.
Well, and we're officially not going to finish this video today.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. This is going to be a series. This is going to be a series.
It was never an option, because in order to finish the video today, we would have to have played it uninterrupted. But the whole point of us being here is to interrupt the video. So, like, that's, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, and also the more we talk, the less likely it is that Catholics for Catholics would be able to enforce a copyright claim. And there is a non-zero chance that John Yep actually monitors his own YouTube mentions. So It might show up. Okay, so here we go.
Who's working so hard for life. We ask this in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
A nation is judged, a society, a culture. The timeless test is how that nation treats its most vulnerable.
Well, now we can't hear the video.
Sorry. I'll run it back a second. Okay. Sorry, I was muting myself because of the dogs. I didn't realize that it would mute the whole video.
That's how success. How great of a country were you? The golden age. Rome, Greece, you name it. Whatever country.
Okay, wait. Okay, here we go.
Conception throughout life. We pray that we may understand more deeply than ever as a nation and as a world, as people of faith who know you, to understand.
I apologize.
A nation is judged, a society, a culture. The timeless test is how that nation treats its most vulnerable citizens.
Says the guy on the side that was in favor of cutting off SNAP benefits for starving people. Got it.
Yeah. But see, this is how people like him get away with it, right? Because he gets up there and he says all the right things. He makes all the right mouth noises, right? He understands what's right. He's just not doing it, right? So he has to convince himself that like cutting off SNAP benefits is somehow compassionate. Or he has to convince himself that no, actually, all of those like American citizen children who were deported with their parents are actually are actually being rescued from like being held as child slaves, right?
Right.
He has to lie to himself about a lot of stuff, because if you live in reality, if he lived in reality, he would know that what he's doing is wrong.
Should I remind Mr. Yep about Leviticus 19:33 to 34?
Yes, please.
So it's from the NRSV, and it says, when an alien resides with you in your land, you shall not oppress the alien. The alien who resides with you shall be to you as a citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
In fact, I would say that the regard for the poor, the orphan, the widow, and the alien dwelling in your midst is one of the most consistent themes in throughout the entire Hebrew Bible.
Right.
And
Right.
in the New Testament as well.
Yeah.
Generally, yeah. Although I feel like the alien is less frequent in the New Testament because by that point, there wasn't really a Jewish polity that you could point to that could identify aliens for them to be protected. So,
Yeah, it's a little more it's a different dynamic that's happening. I think also there's a certain element in like the circles I have been a part of where the destruction of federal policy and program is supposed to open the doors for like churches to do that. Which on its face is like, okay, but how?
Well, there's also the fact that, like, okay, in the Middle Ages, the church really did handle all of that. That was because the Catholic Church was effectively like the social welfare state. So, like, all of that tithing, what and all of that tithing and all of that money that got donated to the church was then plowed back in to taking care of the poor and the widow and the orphan and all that kind of stuff. But in order to do that, every single person had to fork over either goods or cash
or labor.
In order to make that happen. And your tithing was not optional. That was as mandatory as paying taxes were. Because if you weren't paying your tithing, guess what? You can't get married, your kids can't get baptized, you can't get a Christian funeral. So all of those things had major social repercussions. And yeah, the church had plenty of money to spend on social welfare. So, and now, which is why it's so ridiculous that these guys are saying that, oh, the US bishops are being greedy because they're whining that USAID got shut down and all these refugee programs shut down, and the government isn't giving them money to run the social welfare programs they need. No. What is going on is the Catholic Church is doing what the Catholic Church has always done, which is taking money from the secular state and from private donations and using that to help to take care of poor people. And these guys refuse to see that because they just want to let the rich amass giant piles of money. Because they hope that they can get some scraps from their boss's table if they lick their boots until they're shiny enough.
Didn't they read the story about Lazarus? Not Lazarus. No, it's another Lazarus story.
Yeah, it's another Lazarus story.
There's two Lazarus.
He goes to Jesus, and yeah, Jesus is like, sell everything you have and give it to the poor.
No, the one where it's a parable.
Oh yeah, the rich man and Lazarus.
The rich man, yes, rich man and Lazarus, where the rich man does not feed the poor.
Yeah, and ends up in hell. Yeah, that one kind of slaps. Okay. So moving along.
Oh, buffering.
The Golden Age. Rome, Greece, you name it. Whatever country. How?
Okay.
Is he holding those up as exemplars of taking care of the poor?
Yes.
Wow.
And of
that's dumb.
And respecting human life from conception to natural death.
You mean the groups that were famous for trying to expose infants?
Yes. And yes, exactly. Now, before we get into infant exposure, I do want to say that I would say that this is a moment that every classical historian in the world just took psychic damage because he said something that incredibly stupid. However, the fact of the matter is that if you're a classical historian or even just somebody who reads a lot of books about Greece and Rome, you will hear somebody say that or something equally stupid on almost a daily basis. And that may be the reason why a lot of the classical historians I know are probably prone to migraines because of just the unending psychic damage. Okay, yes. Now I'm going to talk about infant exposure in Greece and Rome. And I'm going to be vague enough that YouTube won't shut me down, but I'm also going to talk about it like we are grown-ups. Okay? In Greece and Rome, if a woman in a man's household whether that was his wife, whether that was his daughter, whether that was his slave, had a baby. And also keep in mind that he was within his rights to tell her, you are going to have an abortion. And given the technology and the state of obstetrics at the time, by the time the pregnancy was noticed, she was probably about 5 or 6 months, and the fetus would have been approaching viability. So, or he might decide to go for the safe option and have her give birth. Once that child was born, it was the sole decision of the male head of the household, although presumably a decent man who thought of himself as being a kind husband and a good father and a good master would probably take the mental well-being of the mother into account, much in the same way that when a cat has a litter of kittens, you generally treat her, you might generally try to treat your cat and her kittens in a decent way. Okay? Once that baby has been born, the male head of the household had 3 choices. The first choice was to keep the child and rear the child in his household. The second choice was to give the child to another family who needed a child of that gender. The third choice was to leave the child in a predetermined location where someone would either pick up the child and give it to a wet nurse who would then raise the child, usually until the child was old enough to be sold as a slave. If the child was female, there was a very good chance that that involved being sold into sex work, into a brothel, because brothel keepers would pick up abandoned female babies and raise them until they hit puberty and could then start paying for themselves. Or the baby would die. There are manuals that are surviving that were written to explaining how to evaluate a child at birth to see if the infant was healthy enough to be worth raising. And those advice was also used by people who were looking at abandoned babies who were trying to decide whether or not it was worth their time to raise that baby to be a slave. That is Greece and Rome. So that shows you the profound depth of John Yep's ignorance about the past. Also, I will say that when we are talking about, and the other reason why this is relevant is when we are talking about Catholic attitudes towards abortion and contraception, we have to consider the fact that Christianity was formed and carries the institutional memory of having spent its first 300 years in a culture where it was literally possible for the male head of a family to take a baby from its mother and leave it somewhere to either die or be a slave. And the Catholic Church as an institution is dedicated, among many other things, to making sure that that world never comes back. Now, maybe we're not doing a real great job about applying that, but that's where the church is coming from. And the fact that John Yep doesn't understand that proves that he does not have his right to open his mouth on anything related to human reproduction.
That seems fair. Also, we lost someone.
Yeah, we lost someone. I'm not sure why we lost her. I will message her and let her know that we lost her.
We put her out to be exposed.
What?
We put her out to be exposed, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that that Amanda was exposed.
Probably not. It's not very common here in the 21st century.
Yeah. What's more likely is that because she lives in North Carolina, where they are currently having like a massive ice storm, she may have lost internet.
It is still weird to me that North Carolina is having an ice storm, because that is normally not someplace that gets a lot of snow.
Oh, Florida is having ice storms. Yep. It's really bad. Okay, we have an Amanda again.
My brother in Louisiana is also dealing with ice storms.
Yeah.
I'm just here in Arizona, like, you know what? I made the right choice.
Yeah, I'm sitting here in Arizona going, yeah, I'm gonna have to put on sandals. It's a little bit chilly in the house, so I'm wearing a tropical weight wool dress. Yeah, I feel really bad for all y'all.
I feel like a lot more people could choose to move to Arizona and they don't. So I feel bad for the people who can't, but for all those people who can, I'm like, you chose to live in that place.
I think that Arizona has about as many people as we have water for at the moment.
Okay, there is a good point there.
So people are allowed to move here, but someone has to either leave or die.
Well, I mean, that happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as the population stays stable, we're fine.
Well, the good news is because of the relatively easy tax climate here in Arizona, lots and lots more data centers are being built here, which are going to use up more power and more water than entire cities.
Yes, indeed. I know someone who works as a security guard at a data center.
I feel like that person should be ashamed of themselves.
Okay, that person works for a private security company that assigned him to the job of working at a data center.
That's when you start looking for a new job.
Well, you do the best you can.
I'm sorry, but when you're working at like the place that if this were a video game, the player character would be infiltrating and killing the security guards at, it's time to find a new job.
Yeah, this is true. On the other hand, this particular person is like not disabled enough to qualify for disability under our dystopian system, but he also needs a desk job.
Yeah.
And all of the other available security jobs involve like having to get up and walk around for a few hours, which is very difficult for him. So
then I guess just do a bad job at your job.
Well, I mean, he's literally getting paid to sit at a desk
while guarding the people who are killing the planet.
Oh, okay. Hear me out.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay, the people who are destroying the planet want to believe that the person who is sitting at the desk, if someone came in and were like, hi, we are trying to liberate the world. So we will, that he would like throw himself in front of them.
Okay.
Instead of just saying, you know what? I'm only getting paid like $20 an hour to sit here. It's not worth my life. So you do you.
Right.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is this ideal? No. Is he doing the best he can in the world we live in? Yes.
I'm going to go with a maybe.
Okay.
And that's contingent on him currently looking for work.
Okay. Also, this particular individual could get hired as an ICE agent tomorrow, and he's not doing
Oh,
that.
absolutely. I'm not saying that this is the worst option available to anyone. I am just saying
yeah.
It's the kind of thing where you actively look for work. If he were to become an ICE agent,
yeah.
The things that I would say that would be my opinion are things that I would get in trouble for saying in public.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm not going to say them.
So I think that right now, everyone in America, when they're trying to decide the ethical limit of their job, you have ICE agent is like, as long as your job is more morally defensible than being an ICE agent,
it's a very low bar.
Yeah,
the bar is low. The bar is in hell.
Yeah, that's basically like saying, well, you're not in the SS. It's like,
right,
yeah,
right,
but you're still a concentration camp guard, so who cares?
Right, but you're still a concentration camp guard, right?
Yeah, so like saying that the bar is ICE, who I am comparing here to the SS.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that you set the lower limit, right?
Okay.
And once you've set the lower limit, then you can talk about the gradations above that lower limit.
Right.
But you first have to define the lower boundary.
Okay, so the absolute most atrocious job you could have outside of just like assassin.
Right, is ICE agent.
Is ICE agent. Okay.
So therefore, any job that's not being an ICE agent is at least in a morally gray area.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of room that is not gray, that is above ICE agent, but is still not as bad as ICE agent. And I'm not necessarily saying that desk guy at the security office at the data center is not in the gray area, because I would have to think a lot more about it. But I feel like there are definitely a lot of jobs that are not as heinous as ICE agent, but are still absolutely not acceptable.
Yeah, okay, that's true. I mean, once you start to get down towards ICE agent, you're kind of like such a dark shade of gray that it's almost black.
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just more of a dick than the other people on the panel, but I feel like black starts way above ICE agent.
Okay, we can discuss this later.
Okay.
Because the people that we are discussing are all because the people who are talking today are all at the level of ICE agent.
I'd say Tom is lower.
Okay, possibly lower. But like they are at or below the level of ICE agent.
Okay. This is where I disagree with some of Catholic theology, because I feel like actually not all human life is sacred when you're getting to certain areas like this.
Okay.
But I'm not Catholic, so that's okay. I don't have to follow Catholic theology.
Okay. All human life is sacred to the degree that all humans have the right to live and be treated with dignity.
Disagree.
That does not mean that all humans deserve to be left in a position where they are allowed to run around free, making the world a worse place.
See, I still disagree, but I'm not Catholic, so I don't have to agree. It's all right.
Okay. So
no one's going to excommunicate me from the Catholic Church because I was never in communion with the Catholic Church. So take that.
Yes. But what I'm saying is that life imprisonment is a perfectly acceptable Catholic option.
Okay.
And I feel like, being in a comfortable cell with, a Bible and plenty of time to think about your life and your choices is still respecting someone's right to life. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so let's okay, so now we've gone completely off the rails, and are only 5 minutes in. So
I mean, it's still somewhat on topic.
Okay, so oh no, we're doing better than your streams usually do, Dapper. Because
that's true. The over/under on Mountain is 3 minutes.
We're at least on topic. We have been on topic the entire time.
It's because no one has super chatted about something off topic.
Yeah, that's true. Well, see, that's what happens when we don't have. I don't think I even have super chats.
I doubt it.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't even. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. 61K subscribers.
That is 61K too many.
Yeah, but keep in mind that Candace Owens gets 1 million views on her videos. Like, wow. like 4 right-wing grifters. That's like.
Oh yeah, it's really low.
That's like chump numbers.
Yeah, the average MAGA person has absolutely no idea about Catholics for Catholics, or is it John Yap?
Yep. John Yap, yeah.
John Yap.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Even the average Catholic has no idea about Catholics for Catholics.
I mean, like you said last time, it just sounds like a dating site.
Oh, it really does. Like I keep trying not to write it as Catholics for with a 4, like it would be if it was a dating site.
You know, you could just start that dating site and then try to sue him for like copyright and for trademark infringement. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Although I feel like if I were to run a Catholic dating site, I would want to do it more like the way that that some Jews run dating sites, where it's like basically you go to a matchmaker and she like figures out who should hang out with who. You know? Because if and it's understood that you're like dating for marriage, because I feel like if people who just want to get married were introduced to other people who just want to get married, that people would get married.
I mean, that does seem intuitively correct.
Yeah. And also I think that, you know, because like the Catholic Church has no problem with same-sex roommates, right? So
as far as I know, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So we could introduce people who just want a same-sex roommate. And we will not ask them if they might have a interest in their same-sex roommate's genitals, because that's a really rude question to ask.
I feel like now we're just backdooring gay marriage into a Catholic dating website, which I'm okay with. It just seems like an odd choice.
Well, see, that's the really stupid part, is that like the Catholic position on gay sex is the same as the Catholic position on sex, right? That the only time that anybody should touch their genitals other than medicine and other than for medical or hygienic purposes is because they are having sex, is because they are having penis and vagina intercourse, with the understanding that if a pregnancy results from this act of penis and vagina intercourse, that the child will be loved and cherished and cared for. Now, you might think that that is too extreme of a position. But again, if we're talking about a society in which it was legal to take a perfectly healthy newborn human who could be born to the richest family in town, and that baby would be taken out and just left to either die or live a life of slavery, you can see why a decent and compassionate human might just say, don't do anything with your genitals except under very, very specific circumstances, especially when their concept of homosexuality basically involved slaves getting raped.
I'm not saying I don't understand the idea behind it. I'm just saying I don't think it's ever going to work out.
Oh, I think that the current, okay, this is my position. Hi, Tuco. How are you doing? Yeah, this is me getting a little bit spicy. Okay. This is what I think. I think that the Catholic Church needs to be really, really explicit that what we are talking about is people engaging in penis and in vagina intercourse irresponsibly. And then we need to have a very long conversation about what the responsible use of human genitals looks like in the modern world, especially since now we have enough people that people who are attracted to members of the same sex have the option of finding a person who is also interested in members of the same sex and forming a loving adult relationship that is not going to involve one of them cheating on the wife that their parents picked out for them when they were 14, or just deciding to get their rocks off by sexually exploiting someone that they should not be sexually exploiting.
I mean, look, the Catholic Church has already abandoned Paul's sexual ethic. I don't see why they can't just change their current sexual ethic more or less entirely.
Well, the thing is that they really don't. That's my point, though, is that the basic sexual ethic doesn't need to change.
I mean, it already did.
Exactly. Well, yes and no, because now the basic sexual ethic is use your junk responsibly.
Well, it's not just that, though, because if it were that, then things like contraceptives, including condoms, wouldn't be necessarily condemned, nor would necessarily extramarital sex, because you can do all those things responsibly.
Okay, yes. The issue, though, is that back in the beginning of the 19th century, they looked at the various contraceptive options, which were not great at the time, and very often involved one spouse making a unilateral decision about having children. And also like we're talking about the early 19th century, right? There were a lot of stuff that it was not entirely clear what caused abortion and what what just prevented conception from happening. Also, condoms were not invented until, like, Amanda, can you help me out with a year on condoms? I know it was like with Goodyear in the late 19th century.
Well, okay, it depends on exactly what we mean. Okay, if we mean anything that's used as a mechanical barrier to semen,
okay,
that's put on a penis, then that's been around for thousands of years. If we mean highly effective synthetic chemical-based condoms, then yeah, that's a lot more recent.
Okay, yes.
I'm going to admit right now that I don't really know anything about condoms.
Okay. So sorry. Yeah.
Your sex ed class failed you hard.
I never had one, so.
All right, well, that makes sense.
I'm realizing that if we were talking about condoms, we should have gotten Petra on here. She has actually made and I believe tested a historically accurate 16th century linen condom.
I feel like linen is a terrible choice.
Yes, however, that was what the original condoms were made out of, and she was following Fallopi's directions.
Are we at least putting grease in there so that it's a reasonably watertight barrier?
I don't believe so.
Terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the point, though.
Right, but the other point is, if you're not going to keep up, then what you're doing is you're needlessly burdening people with guilt and condemnations and sanctions from within their own religious tradition that you don't need to. And so if you're not keeping up with the current ability of people to be responsible, what you're doing is actively causing harm. And so it might be the case, and I'm not going to sit here and try to figure it out because I'm fine to accept that it is the case, that in the year 1901, the Catholic stance on acceptable sexual behavior was reasonably helpful in terms of if people followed it and in terms of like what it did to people who didn't follow it and that became known. I doubt that that's super the case, but whatever. I don't really care that much. It's definitely not the case now. I think
Yes.
there is real demonstrable harm that is actively being done by the Catholic Church in terms of their sexual ethic that could be changed. And I know it can be changed because it has been changed. Because
Yeah.
let's face it, the sexual ethic given by St. Paul in the New Testament is you absolutely should not get married. And if you do, the only reason to do it is so that you can have just barely enough sex that you don't go out and have sex more than you should, which is the absolute minimum amount. And he doesn't really care about childbearing because he thinks Jesus is coming back before you're going to have time to raise children anyway.
Yes, exactly. Yes, everything that you've said is correct. And that's why I'm saying that we need to recognize that current Catholic sexual morality is based on the idea that if a baby is that if conception happens, that zygote has a reasonable chance of being born and living a relatively happy life. And if we take the conversation back to that basic level, we can start to come up with a better way of applying that concept. Because yes, right now the application in a lot of cases hurts people, right? And I'm saying that as someone who was hurt. I mean, I'm part of the generation of women who were basically told, lie in the confessional. Use contraception, but don't tell the priest. And if the priest asks you, lie. And that is bullshit because it also means that when a Catholic woman has a legitimate personal problem that requires the input of a priest, or when a Catholic man has something related to his reproductive capacity that he wants to talk to a priest about, he can't do that because he thinks he knows what the priest is always going to say, and the priest is going to tell him, don't do that, or it's a mortal sin. Even though a lot of priests, if you go to them with, I've got 4 kids, and the doctor tells me that if I get pregnant again, I am going to die. Is it okay for me to get a tubal ligation or for my husband to get a vasectomy? The priest will say, yes, absolutely. You should do that. But the Catholic Church's messaging on this issue sucks donkey balls. And of course, I'm only talking about America because that's the only place where I've ever been Catholic.
It's one of the many places I've never been Catholic.
Same. I do feel like my own purity culture upbringing so much less complicated. Crazy, but less complicated. And
also really bad at maintaining that alleged purity, statistically speaking.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Look, I'm not asking about your personal experience. I'm just saying statistically, there's a whole lot more teenage sex in purity culture places than in places that just have good sex ed.
Well, it turns out when you tell teenagers not to do things, they tend to do those things. But
they sure do.
That's a whole other thing. And then the other thing I was going to say is we have like 7 minutes.
We could get to 6 minutes, I bet. I bet we could get this video to 6 minutes.
I'm going to hit play right now. We'll see if we can get to 6 minutes before he says something so stupid that we have to pause and yell at him again.
How did they treat those people who had no voice, who were
I think we already
defenseless,
discussed that.
Yeah.
the children. In 2025, the 250th anniversary of the country, we're being judged as a society by how we're taking care of those kids. Tomorrow.
Yeah. And you're the problem, buddy.
Okay, we've gotten to 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like the call is coming from inside the house, guy.
Yeah,
and I don't mean Catholics
yeah.
generally. I don't think that Catholics generally are the problem here. This guy and the people who he's supporting, the people whom he's giving awards to, you guys are the problem. You are materially making life worse for a whole bunch of people. And I don't think the statistics bear out this that there's been some gigantic drop in abortions because people just go elsewhere, like they did back when it was illegal basically nationwide, right? It didn't actually stop abortions.
Well,
They went up. They went up.
And more
It
to
went
the
up.
point,
Oh, it went up. There you
Honestly,
go.
statistically, it went up because people had to choose sooner.
Ah, it's easier when it's sooner. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. So people, you had to, you might, if you were sort of trying to figure it out and you waited a little bit, you might choose to keep a pregnancy.
Okay.
But if you have to make that decision right away before the window closes, you're more likely to say no, because if you're waffling already.
And of course, a number of instances of both the mother and the baby dying have occurred in which it would have only been one of them had the laws not been changed in places like Texas.
yes.
So there's also that.
And that is another example of why the Catholic stance against abortion does not work particularly well when you try to put it into law, because you end up with cases where people are like, well, okay, the woman's miscarrying, but there's still a heartbeat. My opinion on this, speaking as someone who has had miscarriages and who has had live deliveries, is that when the baby is going to come out, the baby is going to come out. And trying to keep that baby in there is not going to result in anything good. And it doesn't matter if you are 1 week pregnant or 41 weeks pregnant. When that baby is going to come out, that baby is going to come out. And the fact that there are points in gestation where if that baby comes out, it will not survive is tragic. It sucks.
Yeah.
When and if I get to heaven, the first thing I am going to say to God is, what the fuck, dude?
That seems fair.
But that is the problem with making abortion illegal and focusing on making abortion illegal rather than making it unnecessary. And I think that the Catholic Church is starting to wake up to that. And I think that one of the things that is helping the Catholic Church to wake up to that is because the hierarchy is finally waking up to the damage that is being done by people like Tom Homan, like John Yep, who are going out there and like basically getting their catechesis and moral theology from a bunch of Protestants who are thus picking up all of these insane purity culture ideas.
Might I suggest that they still have a personal responsibility for the things that they chose?
Oh yeah.
They are.
No, I know. I'm joking.
It's always one of those things where, like, look, there's people maintain a personal responsibility for their actions, but that doesn't mean that their actions don't have causes and explanations that we should investigate and we should look into and try to figure out how to mitigate those factors for future people.
Oh, no, 100%. I come from a lot of those very same communities that are part of this problem. So totally aware.
Yeah, because that's
I was just being cheeky.
No, but the thing is, though, it's a really good thing to keep in mind is that we can't go to either the extreme of just ignoring all factors that lead to poor decisions, and by poor I include like monstrously immoral decisions, On the other hand, we can't go so far into the like, well, this person is just a poor tragic victim of circumstance that we ignore any sense of personal responsibility. And it's you have to walk the tightrope because like it's easy to fall into one extreme or the other, and I feel like neither of those extremes is going to be good for society as a whole. We have to hold people responsible for their choices. But on the other hand, I think we should all be striving to make a society in which poor choices are seen as not a good choice for someone to make to the maximum extent possible, whether that be through like improving the conditions in which people grow up, whether it be in terms of changing messaging from religious institutions about certain things when it seems obvious that that messaging is being actually harmful rather than providing the intended effect, all sorts of things like that. And so, like you're joking, but it is a really serious thing that we really do have to be careful with because it's easy to screw it up.
Oh, yes,
Okay. Well,
definitely.
on that note, it is 4:45, and the person who I am sponsoring is looking at me and looking at his phone very pointedly because it's time for us to go and talk to the priest. I am going to close this off for today. Dapper, do you think you might be able to come back at the same time next week?
I think so. It's not 100%. There
Okay.
is the possibility that I'm working on a fundraising stream for my friend Vishanti, who is trying not to end up unhoused in California, which is tough to do.
Yep.
And as much as I do enjoy this, that would take priority
Oh,
if that
yes.
is when we
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
set it
yeah,
up.
yeah, yes. Vishanti 100% takes priority.
Yeah.
And indeed, we would schedule this around Vishanti's
Oh, well, in
fundraising.
that case, then yeah, it becomes much more likely. And
So,
I don't think
yeah,
it will be next week. It's just that it's among the possible dates.
yes,
And yeah,
yeah.
making sure that
Okay.
she is going to keep surviving is a higher priority than complaining about John Yep.
Yes, absolutely. But, complaining about John Yep is still important.
Oh,
So
absolutely. There
anyway,
is no way in which I want to
yeah.
disagree there.
Okay. So anyway, I am going to close the live stream and invite everyone to come back at the same time on Thursday, hopefully, which is 5:30 Eastern, which is 3:30